everyone, my name is Tiffany and with me today is Christina.
Hello.
And we are the managers of TaxBandits. We invite you here today to show you why you all want to stay in love with TaxBandits all year long.
Now, as a reminder, TaxBandits is an IRS authorized e-file provider. While we love to talk about taxes and have years and years of experience, we are not tax advisors. So if you have any specific questions or need direct tax advice, please contact a certified tax preparer or the IRS.
Today we're going to dive into correction process and the latest insights on ERC claim withdrawals, from simplified e-filing without the need to have a TCC to the convenience of requesting a W-9 online. We've got your IRS compliance needs covered.
All right, so now that we are officially in a post-January world, Tiffany, can you tell us a little bit about what are the most immediate things that filers and preparers and businesses need to be focusing on now?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so corrections. That is a really big thing after the January season. So many things can either go through the cracks or need corrected after the forms have been filed. So what have you got to do? It's easy with TaxBandits to file the 1099 correction or the W-2C and get those corrections taken care of, especially for business owners and CPAs alike. It's really simple. Christina, what things can be corrected?
Definitely one of some of the most common things are recipient detail corrections. So the recipient's name or the TIN. Sometimes something is transposed or misspelled or an initial is left off.
So easy.
Yes. And so many of them, like you said, they fall through the cracks and it gets filed and then you've got to correct that information. Amount details are also something that kind of fall under that recipient detail correction umbrella. Payer information so like you said, with TaxBandits, they can easily e-file the recipient detail corrections. We also have an option for you to generate a letter that you can send to the IRS to mail to get those payer corrections made. Other really important notes with the corrections, with paper filing, I know so many businesses are used to paper filing and now they've transitioned to e-filing because of the new requirements. Yep. With paper filing, the 1096 and the W-3 were more prevalent in that process of filing corrections. But with e-filing, when you e-file with TaxBandits, we generate the 1096 and the W-3 for you automatically just for your record keeping, and that the same thing happens when you file your corrections, right? So we're updating the 1096 and the W-3 that you have available, or the W-3C, if you will, that you have available to download just for records or for your clients' records, but that information doesn't have to be filed separately with the IRS when you're e-filing corrections.
Oh yeah.
I could go on and on, but we get so many questions this time of year because it is so important. With state corrections, I know that's something that we get questions about a lot, and a lot of the time, the best thing to do is to reach out to the State Department of Revenue directly, just because the state requirements vary. I know I've heard from states in prior seasons that don't even allow the corrections to be e-filed. Sometimes paper filing is required, or they might have a specific process or circumstance or whatever it may be for that state. So it's always a good idea to check out the Department of Revenue site or to call them and just find out how that works for them specifically.
And every state is so different at times.
Yes, so different. And last thing, to void or not to void?
That is always the question.
Yes, the corrections, they have the void box, they have the corrected box, and there's just confusion about the difference. And usually, if you're voiding a form, that is indicating that form should not have been filed at all, right? Versus correcting is you're trying to change information on the form that was filed, but keep it filed is kind of how I look at that.
Is there any time that you should void versus correcting a form? How do you know which one you should be doing?
If the form shouldn't have been filed, if Bob was mistakenly filed for under ABC LLC, maybe he worked a prior year and he didn't actually work this year and that form shouldn't have been filed. A lot of times it'll just be voided to kind of cancel out the original, almost, I like to think about it as voiding a check, right? You're canceling out and it just sort of
There we go.
Versus like correcting, you're just amending or making a change to what's been filed, but like that filed form still exists.
And this year, TaxBandits got a wonderful new button. I love this button. It is Make a Correction button. You go into your form that you filed, and to the right of it, there's a little button that says Make a Correction. It's amazing. You just click that button next to the form you need to fix, and it automatically pulls up the correction form. You fix what you need to fix, and you submit. It's awesome.
And it's amazing how much like a single button will make a difference.
Yes.
Like just having it right there, having it easy to access and easy to find, and you just go right into the process.
Exactly. It's so convenient. Do you have any buttons that you love?
Of course I do. Of course I do. My favorite button is less correction related, but it's a really good button. We added this season in the top right corner of your account when you sign in. He is Bandit AI. So it looks like almost like a little robot head, and it has the little bandit eyes in it. When you click on it, it takes you to like FAQs that we get a lot and the answers. It takes you to different like help videos. We have like a knowledge base and all kinds of information that the stuff that we talk about on our webinars and in our videos, it's included in there. It's just a really easy to access section. But he's so cute and he bounces and it actually is helpful. So I think that's my favorite button. So on that same note of having helpful information available for our clients, I know we try to stay on top of like IRS updates and changes and just news that's out there for the industry. And I know there's been a lot of talk lately about changes that relate to the ERC and that whole program that's been going on for what, almost 4 years now.
Yeah, a long time.
So can you just give us a little bit of insight on like maybe what the program is for anyone that's maybe not familiar and like what the changes are?
Sure. So the Employee Retention Credit, or the ERC, sometimes called the Employee Retention Tax Credit, or the ERTC, is a refundable tax credit for certain eligible businesses and tax-exempt organizations that had employees and were affected during the COVID-19 pandemic. The requirements, they do vary depending on when the ERC or the form was filed. The ERC is not available to individuals, and so the IRS recently introduced a program to assist with the massive amounts of ERC applications, if you will, that were filed and shouldn't have been.
So I have a question. See, when you say withdrawal, you're not, like you're saying that is withdrawing the application or like the request for the ERC, not withdrawing the payment that you applied for the ERC. Is
That's
that
correct?
Okay.
Yes. So when the IRS means that you can withdraw your form, they are literally meaning you can withdraw your claim to the refund.
Gotcha.
So they're not saying, hey, here, go withdraw the funds. They're saying you can take back the form that you
like
probably
if you weren't
shouldn't have filed.
eligible,
Yeah, if you
here's a
didn't.
way to fix that.
Exactly.
Okay. So that definitely makes sense. And if you weren't eligible for the ERC and you applied for it, what do they do now? How does this work?
If you aren't sure if you are eligible for the ERC, the IRS Employee Retention Credit Eligibility Checklist can help you determine if you're eligible or not.
Okay, so like figuring out if you should have applied for it at all is probably a good...
There's a little checklist of like if you do this or if you do this or if you do this, then you would or would not qualify.
So if like this new program, how long do like businesses have to, like is this just available from now on? Because I know the ERC has been available for so long now, or is there like a set time that it has to be completed by?
So it is not a permanent. The ERC VDP, or Voluntary Disclosure Program, is only open through March of 2024. So it's getting close to the end.
Do we know, like is it the beginning of March or is it through the end of, do we know if there's like a specific date?
It's March 22nd.
Okay, so pretty close to when we're filming this today.
Yep, yes.
Gotcha. I mean, that's definitely good to know information, though, because that puts a time clock on
Exactly,
this.
exactly.
So if a business does want to go through this, like this disclosure program with the IRS, what do they do?
So the IRS requires you to, one, voluntarily pay back the ERC, but you get to keep 20% of it if you were paid for your refund. You also are required to cooperate with any request from the IRS for more information and sign a closing agreement.
Interesting. And I know there's more information about all of that on the IRS site.
Absolutely.
So we can also include that in our description.
Definitely.
Just so that there's some reference material where you can go check out like the eligibility information, the program information, just so everybody has access to that.
So Christina, what other big changes do you want to discuss today?
I would love to talk about the TCC.
That's a fun one.
And it's not, like I know that it's been around for a long time, obviously, and there are many preparers and different entities out there that have a TCC, but the changes to it have just kind of brought it into the forefront more than it normally is. And I think with so many companies now having to e-file, it's come up more than it used to. So the application process and the requirements did change. I know the IRS is moving toward the IRS system, and there are just so many changes kind of happening right now with e-file requirements and everything. TCC holders that had applied for a TCC, way back, like if it was before September 26th of 2021, they were required to submit a new application in order to be able to keep using that TCC for e-filing, and that new application had to be submitted by August 1st of 2023.
Oh, wow.
And just from what we heard in the filing season, I know there were a lot of companies that either like misread that, didn't pay attention to it, thought they were kind of good to go like they normally are, and then found out when they went to try to e-file that things had changed. And so if we heard about it, I know we only hear from such a small percentage of our customers, so I'm sure there are lots of companies that were affected in a similar way. But we've also just heard that it's a time-consuming process. I mean, the process to get the application taken care of alone is up to 45 days, and
that's a long time, especially if you're in a time crunch.
Yes, if the deadline is nigh, if you will. But there, it's just one more thing to have to worry about on top of the actual form filing and completing that you're doing. And I think part of the reason that we get like really focused on it, and I know I get like very passionate about it, is because you don't need the TCC to file with us.
Exactly.
You can create your account, you can input your form details either by uploading them or one of the multiple ways we have for getting the data into the system, through an integration, through any of those options. But the form details are in the account. You can download draft copies, you can review them, do everything that you need to do. And then when you go to transmit, you just click a button to complete your order, and we e-file. We get the status back from the IRS. We update the status in the account. We email you. We take care of that whole side of it, so you don't need the TCC. And the other part of it is if you're using the TCC and you're uploading directly to the IRS, that means you literally have to go and upload. You have to format this file and get it in the right format and go and upload it on the IRS site. And even on the SSA site, like you have to go and upload it directly. And it's just an extra step that has to be done, and it has to be done correctly, and you've got to get the status back, and you've got to kind of deal with all of that.
Sounds like a lot of extra steps.
It's a lot of extra steps, and you really could just use TaxBandits. You have all of the benefits of using TaxBandits in place, all of the error checks and audits and things like that. And then we handle the e-filing. So it's just one less thing you need, one less thing you have to worry about. So I know that was a lot, but that's my rant on the TCC. Back to our webinar today. Now January is over, I know January feels like about a decade for most people. But now that it's over, it's really tempting to just like, okay, we're done. It's done for the year for a lot of people, but there's still really important things going on, important things to stay on top of. So what are Like, what are some things that businesses and especially tax preparers can do like now and year round just to make sure that they're on top of everything and to make next January even easier than it
Oh,
was
for
this
sure.
year?
So you definitely want to request your W-9s electronically throughout the year. So many companies will include their requesting of W-9s as part of their onboarding process so that new vendors or contractors will go ahead and get their information in. So after their, when it's December and you need to get ready for those 1099s, you've already got the information in your database.
And why is requesting them like electronically more helpful or more important than doing like a normal paper, old school W-9?
Well, for one thing, it's faster. You just type in an email and a name and request it. That's it. It's real simple. You aren't waiting for someone to fill out a paper and get it back to you, and if water drips on it, it's ruined, so you can't see it, for one. Electronic W-9 filing it also increases the accuracy of the information that the recipient provides. So when a recipient completes a W-9 requested through TaxBandits, they are required to complete all the fields in the form that are required. For example, they can't fill out a W-9 without a 10.
I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? Because that's
the whole
literally
reason.
why you're requesting it, yes. So I actually do have a follow-up question. So on that, that's saying like, they have to provide the information. But what if the recipient puts wrong information? Like sometimes they're just not as familiar with what's needed, what's being asked for. Like what if they put LLC as the whole business name and that's all they put? Is there something to account for that or to help with that with requesting them electronically?
For sure. That's what's great about TaxBandits. When they requested an electronic W-9 through TaxBandits, they can review, or you can review, the W-9 before you accept it. So if you need to resend it to the vendor, you can and have them correct it.
Got it. So if you requested a W-9 from me, and if I just put some information that you looked at that in TaxBandits and you said, no, Christina, this is not right, you actually reject it and say, please put your legal business name or please like whatever is needed. And do I get that message back? And so then I can update and resend that W-9 to you, and it just all happens, quickly.
Exactly, yeah. You'll get an email with that request, and then you go into the little link and you fix what needs to be fixed, and it sends it right back to your payer.
That's so much easier. So that covers, I'm just thinking that, like obviously that covers like the required fields being completed. But what about like the recipient's TIN? Because you're as the requester, you're not going to know if I put the right TIN or some nonsense, like something that's just the wrong number, right? So what happens then?
Well, currently TaxBandits does offer automatic TIN matching on W-9 forms requested when they're requested through TaxBandits. You can actually wait to accept or reject the W-9 until the TIN matching is complete, and that way you know if it's right or not.
And that way, like if it fails, then you can say, hey, Christina, this name and TIN are not correct. Like, please check your records and update it.
Exactly.
And that way, when you go to file the 1099s at the end of the year, you have the correct, like you know it's right. You know it's not going to be rejected because of the name and TIN. You're not going to have to deal with all of that, like aftermath.
And if you do it as you get a vendor, like Joe did a roofing job for me, and I need to go ahead and get that W-9 then. That way it's not, August, September, and you're like, I got to remember who Joe was.
You have like a stack of W-9s to request. And a lot of times, I feel like you can't always get in touch with people that far down the road.
Yes.
And so doing them throughout the year, and with TaxBandits, you can do a few at a time, you can do one at a time, and they're just there in your records.
Exactly.
So that when you go to file your 1099s, you have everything in one place.
Exactly. And it helps so much with getting everything in order and ready for you when the 1099 season comes around, because January might feel like 10 years, but It is only 31 days.
Correct.
And they go by faster than we think.
There's not enough time leading up to it. From the end of the year where you kind of have everything to the time to file, there's just not enough time in between.
It's just not. Also, there are always a few other things to keep in mind. Like ACA is March 1st for the recipient copy deadline.
Yep.
And April 1st is the e-filing deadline for ACA forms. And getting something in place now for the next filing season is always a smart thing to do.
Especially like right now, it's fresh in your mind what you didn't like about what you did this year, what you wish was different. Like this is the time, and you still have like kind of the team's mindset, like it's still fresh in the mind of everybody that's a part of it. So it's a really good time to start looking for something different. Go ahead and get something in place now, because like you said, by the time we get to August, no one's going to have time for that. It's not going to, you're not going to remember, oh, well, I hated this. Or if it didn't go well, it's not going to seem so bad in August. You're going to say, well, I'll just go with it again. And then you're going to have another stressful filing season. So getting something in place now that you have time to vet and you have time to know, okay, this is going to be better for me moving forward. It's a good thing to consider.
Exactly. And you can check out our webinar on automating the 1099 filing process on February 27th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can register by clicking the link in the description box.
Well, I think that wraps us up for today. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover?
Well, I mean, there's so much.
Like we
There's
could
so
sit here
much.
and
We could
all
talk
day.
for days.
But I doubt anybody would watch that long of a webinar. So thank you all for joining us today. We hope that this was helpful. Please leave any comments about future topics that you'd like to hear about. Like Tiffany said, make sure to check out the links to register for upcoming webinars and the link on more IRS information.
Yes.
And if you haven't already created your account, go to TaxBandits.com and create your account now. Thank you.
Bye.